With a short film, sometimes we'll use it as a research project for technology, but more often we don't, and it's just a short film by itself. And with La Luna, we weren't using it as a research project. And in the schedule, we were right after Toy Story 3, so we just the most efficient way to get it done was just to take the Toy Story 3 technology and use it, but just apply it in a different style. So everything that we used inside of La Luna was pretty much analogous to something we had done in Toy Story 3. We just did it with a very different color palette, a different level of stylization and all. But technologically, they're very similar. We end up having quite a few people working on it over time, but it's much smaller than a feature film crew. And it's a little funny because the different groups overlap in different ways. It's like the animators will be on for a while, and then they'll all leave before the lighters come on. And so with a feature film, you have many sequences in production, so they can be at different parts of the pipeline. But with a short film, it's like the entire film is going through the stages at once. So the different departments come and go, and as the supervising technical director, I'm like bringing them on and helping them finish up. And it's fun to feel that, be the continuity that holds it all, the vision through all of these people coming on and off. Enrico was very specific about how he wanted the reflections of the moonlight on the water and the shadows of people sitting in the boat, you know, in the moonlight. And so there were a lot of times we were pushing things in the lighting and compositing, or we were faking where things were to art direct the way the reflections were. But we were always going for a feel that was like the way light really reflects on water. But we wanted certain shapes to be broken up and certain shapes to hang together so you could read them. So yeah, there's always a balance there of how much you can art direct and how much you can set up a kind of physically based process and just see what you get. The 3D was fairly on, you know, because it's a very gentle story, and it's not one where you would really want to push it. But there are just certain scenes where, you know, there's some forced perspective and stuff where you can have the stereo doing some work for you. But it didn't affect the lighting too much, except for we used a lot of, we were trying to bring in traditional materials like pastels and watercolors, that look. And the way we were bringing it in would very often, when you convert it to 3D, it would look like it was something painted on a glass pane. So we had to do some extra work to soften those and give them some depth so they were less distinct in depth. But most of the rest of the film just kind of worked. Sometimes the reflections, like the moon reflected on water, when you do the true 3D reflection, it'll be just a little too exciting. It attracts your attention, even though it's physically doing more or less the right thing. So we'd sometimes tone them down a bit so that it would be less distracting from what you really should be looking at. So much of his early work was done in watercolors. Everybody was excited about trying to get an element of that. It's hard because we didn't go all the way to doing like a non-photoreal kind of rendering where it really looked like a watercolor painting. But we tried to bring those textures into the objects. So the way the wood surfaces were textured had very much a feel, and the way that the skies were all done with, you know, pastels, and so that we were able to inform a lot of our shading and lighting from these traditional materials. But there are boundaries you get against, because if you try to put too much texture into skin, like human skin, it starts to feel not human anymore, or if it is human, it feels like it's dirty or diseased or something. So there are some places where you can do that. So you would, if you were trying to make a human skin look like watercolor or pastel, you would have to go all the way to non-photorealistic rendering to be able to believe the texture. But there's the in-between point is hard to find. Enrico had a very specific idea of these stars, that they had been traveling through the universe. That's why they have like scratches and nicks on them, because they've just been going for millennia they've been flying through the universe, and then they land on the moon. And there was a lot of variation in them. They all have a slightly different brightness levels, because they, the ones that have been lying there older just gradually fade, and the newer ones are brighter. And we tried to, if they look like very much all the same star, and the model is basically the same, but there's a lot of variation in there that if you took it out and you made them all the same star, you would notice that, like, oh, they're all exactly identical, but every one is slightly unique. There's all these different texture patterns in them, and different levels of glow, and just a lot of a little variation in size to make them feel like they're or have a more organic and natural feel rather than an artificial, all identical feel. We always go for a very stylized world. We're not very interested in doing reality. There's a famous quote from Alvy Ray Smith, one of the founders of Pixar. He said, "Reality is merely a convenient measure of complexity," which sounds pretty provocative, but he's only talking about computer graphics. It's like we want to be able to make things as complex as photorealism, but why do photorealism? It's like if you want things to look like they look like in this world, then you just open up a camera and you can get that. Whereas we want to create worlds. We want to stylize the world. So the Paris of Ratatouille is inspired by Paris, but it's not Paris. It's this other Paris. And just every world, it's an adventure to create it. And the production designers get to design everything and choose the color palettes and the textures and everything. So at the same time, with the character design, we want them to fit with the story and fit with the world. Probably the times that we hit that a little bit was with Toy Story. Kind of constrained us in the way we could design the humans, because the toys are actually fairly realistic for toys. They're just plastic toys, and the way they move is, of course, fantasy, but they look fairly real. So, which kind of constrains you how far you can stylize the humans. You have to go fairly real, which was very difficult for Toy Story 1. You can watch from Toy Story to Toy Story 2 to Toy Story 3. We got better and better at doing humans, so we're pretty proud of the humans in Toy Story 3. But it's some of the shots in the original Toy Story is like, oh, it's a movie about toys. You shouldn't be looking at the humans. We were kind of constrained because there was only so far you could stylize. It would be funny to see a film where the toys looked real and the humans looked cartoony. It wouldn't work. So you need kind of a consistent level of stylization to make the world feels like it hangs together. Well, it's working at Pixar. Sometimes we're kind of watching some of that from the sidelines in a way, because we're more grounded in traditional animation where it's styled, and so we don't use motion capture, and so far we haven't felt like we needed it for any of the stories we told. I've thought of like you hear a lot of statements by some directors and people about motion captured. Oh, you get to work with the actors and get those animators out of the way, and for me it's kind of the wrong way of putting it, because really for us the actors, I mean, there are actors who do the voices, but then the physical performance, the animator is an actor. They're just acting with one level of indirection, but they have to know how to embody the action themselves to be able to translate it into something else. A good character animator will know how the movement works, and so if it ever gets motion capture ever gets incorporated at Pixar, I would see it like as a tool for animators rather than as a tool for a director to get animators out of the way. I could see animators wanting, like, oh well, I remove one level of indirection and can do this motion capture performance, and then go in to the animation system and put it from there. But it could give you a good first start, so they could spend less time dialing fine animation controls to get the beginning. But nobody seems to have taken it that direction. It's always trying to put regular actors in the motion capture suits. Brave, there was a lot of technical development going on. The cloth is amazing. There's the technology to actually weave hairs into fabric. I'm sure there'll be, once it's released, some of the technical people will be giving some great presentations about some of the things that they've done with cloth and hair, and getting the natural beauty of the camera goes out into the forest, and there's old ancient trees with moss all over them and vegetation everywhere, and they developed a lot of really clever techniques to make that possible, and with a lot of interaction with deep RenderMan features to be able to accomplish it. We're pushing in new directions with animation, with lighting as well, and I think the Brave is going to be just beautiful, and it's got a lot of new techniques, but it's still grounded in the process that we've been using for years. The next film after Brave, Monsters University, is incorporating a lot of new technology into the lighting system, and I think you'll be really amazed at the look. It's going in a whole new direction. For us, with much more physically based lights, and be interesting to see, because what I've seen so far of it is really beautiful.